Hello and welcome to Intro to Programming. So today we're going to go further in depth on HTML, and we're going to spend a lot of time with like formatting. So bringing our pages to life so it's not just like black and white text and things like that. All right. So before we get started, I've got some big news. All right. I mean, not just like kind of big news, like really big news. All right, so I was working on my Brady Bunch page because, that's what people do when they have free time is they work on their Brady Bunch fan club page. So I'm at home, I'm working at the Brady Bunch fan club page, and you're not going to believe what happens. This is where you're supposed to say, what happened, Mr. Bono? My phone rings. My phone never rings. I don't get that many phone calls. Not because I'm not popular. It's just, I don't want phone calls. That's all it is. So I pick up the phone, and who do you think it is? Yeah, I know. Greg Brady. All right, Greg Brady is calling me about the Brady Bunch fan page. And he's like, Vona, what's going on here? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I've seen the page. I like what you've got going on, but those pictures, they need to be bigger. Right? Brady Bunch was the biggest show in America. Those pictures need to reflect how big the show was. And I was like, Greg, for you, anything. All right. So I go in to my page and I say, all right, how big do you want them? He's like, as big as you can go. So I was like, all right, I don't know. Let's bring it up to like 400 maybe. So I go through and there's 9 pictures. So I have to go through and I have to change all 9 pictures. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just going through and I'm changing all 9 pictures. Now they have a height and a width. So that really means that I'm changing 18 different values. But it'll be worth it because it's for Greg. And I mean, who am I to say no to Greg? So I load it up. I let him see it. And he's like, Vona. He's like, that's great. He's like, it's amazing. It's exactly what I wanted. And I was like, Greg, for you, anything. So we get off the phone. I am on top of the world. I could not feel better until the phone rings again. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I pick up because my phone never rings twice in one night. So I pick it up. Guess who it is? I know, Marsha Brady. The Marsha Brady. My mind is blown. I mean, Marsha Brady. Can you believe it? It's like 25 dreams come true. So I'm super excited, but then the world comes crashing down around me because Marsha's not happy. Marsha's like, Vona, what did you do? I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, I saw the new pictures. Greg told me. She's like, my nose hasn't been that big since it got hit with the football and I ruined my date with Doug. And I'm like, Marsha, I'm sorry. She's like, the pictures just aren't good enough. They've got to be smaller. Otherwise they look too blurry. You got to shrink them down. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, Greg's telling me to do one thing. Marsha's telling me to do another thing. Like, what do I do? But it's Marsha. I can't say no to Marsha. I mean, that would be crazy. Who's going to say no to Marsha? So I'm like, Marsha, whatever you want. Like, honestly, if you want the picture smaller, they're smaller. Let's just have this happen. All right. So I go back to my page and I go through and I change them all down to 100 because, again, if this is what Marsha wants, this is what Marsha is going to get. And again, it takes a little while because there's 18 different numbers I have to change. But eventually I get there. I save it. And I show it to Marsha. And Marsha's like, thank you so much better. And then I'm like, so Marcia, do you want to like hang out? And by then she's already hung up. So like it's awkward. But here we are. The page is better. I'm feeling good. Just about to sit down with my dinner, watch some reruns of old Brady Bunch episodes, and the phone rings again. And now I'm almost like dreading it because I'm like, what's next? Is like Cindy Brady going to call me? Not Cindy Brady. Greg's calling back. And Greg's like, I talked to Marcia. He's like, this is not okay. Now we look like we're some small 2-bit show. And I'm like, Greg, but Marcia told me to make them smaller. And he's like, I've got Marcia on the line. All right. So now we're like conference calling. It's Greg, Marcia, me, and we're trying to hash this out. And Greg and Marcia are furious at one another. It rivals any fight they ever had on the show. And I'm just sitting back being like, well, guy, we got to come to a compromise. And they're like, how are we going to come to a compromise? And I'm like, well, you know who we need. And they're like, who? And I'm like, Alice, the center square. All right. She's the only one that's going to be able to figure this out. Unfortunately, I don't know how many of you are aware, but Alice has passed on. All right. So they're like, well, what are we going to do? Luckily, in my closet, I had a Ouija board. All right. So I bring out the Ouija board and we try to figure out what Alice wants us to do. All right. And Alice starts communicating and she tells, Greg, that there's got to be like a compromise here between big and small, and they need to do it for the good of the family to keep the bunch together. And eventually, Alice sort of works everything out because it's Alice. She always works everything out. She's the glue that holds the bunch together. And we settle on the number 200, which was in fact the very first number. But I'm like, fine, if this is what Alice is saying to do, then it's clearly the right move. So I just go back and I change everything to 200. And part of me is excited because I've got to talk to the Brady Bunch so much tonight. But part of me is like, I've had to change these numbers. Like I've made like 54 changes, 18 times 18, 18, 18, 18. It's 54. And I'm just like, oh man, this is like slow and tedious. Like what's going to happen when like my page is totally done and there's like 100 pictures? Like, am I going to be going in and changing 100 heights and widths? But I keep this all to myself because again, they're still on the phone, and we kind of agree to it, and everybody's happy, and I think we've come to a good resolution. And again, I'm like, hey, so do you two gonna and they hang up on me, and it's okay. It's like I don't take it personally. Like I didn't really want to hang out with them anyways. Like I had stuff to do, but it was fine. But it did get me worrying. It was like, once I have so many pictures on here, like how am I going to keep this up to date every time I have to make an adjustment? So I started learning about HTML because I was like, I teach HTML. I should probably learn something about it. And I found this amazing thing called a style tag. Right? So what's the style tag and how is it going to help us? All right, so here's how it's going to help us. I'm going to go through and I am going to delete out every single one of these heights and widths. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why are you going to delete them all out? Didn't you just spend a ton of time putting them in there? And you're right, I did. But I'm going to do it anyways because that's the way I roll. All right, so they're all out. All right, so if I reload the page, the pictures are just down to their original sizes. All right, because if you don't specify a height and width, they're just going to be the original size of the picture. So let's take a look at this style tag and see what it allows us to do. Now, the style tag does not go inside of the body because it's not anything that's physically showing up on the page. So I'm going to go up here to my head section. And I'm going to make a starting style tag. And I'm going to make an ending style tag. And what I can put inside of a style tag are what are called CSS, for cascading style sheet, formatting rules. And basically what it allows me to do is format a whole bunch of tags all at once. All right, so what I can do is I can go in here and I can say IMG, right? No less than, no greater than, just IMG for image, because that's what the image tag uses. I can then do a left curly brace. Then I'm going to hit enter a few times, and I'm going to do a right curly brace. Now, what's going to go inside of these curly braces are commands that format this tag. And they're going to be the same commands that we've previously been putting inside of the style attribute. So here we had style equals background color, style equals text align. These commands that we've been putting in here, we can now put inside of these curly braces. So I can say height 500 px. I can say width 500 px. And if I save this and reload my page, all right, it instantly formatted all 9 pictures because all 9 pictures are inside of image tags. So I am applying one default rule to all of the image tags on my page. And that one default rule becomes the starting point. So the starting point for all of these tags is 500, 500. And now if I need to update something, instead of having to go and change it 18 different times, I can change it in this one spot, and all of them will instantly update. And now it doesn't matter who calls me from the Brady Bunch, hopefully all of them that are still alive. I can quickly make edits and change things with just one or two strokes of the keyboard, as opposed to having to go in and do things 18 times. So what we're going to see is that when we make our web pages, we're going to put some sort of default rules up in the style tag. And these default rules give us a starting point for our page. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, what if you don't want every single picture to be the same exact size? All right, well, I can go down here and let's say I want Alice to be bigger because she's Alice. I could say style equals, how big do we want Alice to be? We'll just give her 500. So width 500 px, semicolon, height 500 px, semicolon. And if I relaunch my page here, you're now going to see that the other pictures are tiny, but Alice is 500 pixels. All right? And the reason this happens is these pages are rendered or created from top to bottom. So what happens is the page starts, it sees the style tag, and it says, okay, all the pictures are 50 pixels. Then it continues to go down, and when it gets to this image tag, it sees a new rule that overwrites the starting rule that was established up here. So basically, the closer the rule is to the actual tag, the more precedence it's going to have. Like, it's going to overrule the other stuff. And you can't get closer to a tag than right inside of the tag. So if you set the style inside of the tag, that's going to win out over any rules that you put up above here. So I can have defaults, and then I can overwrite those defaults if I go in the tag and specify the style directly in the tag. Right? So that's kind of the big idea of today, is this idea of setting default rules up in the head section of our web page, and then using those as the starting point and only overriding them down in the page if there is like a specific exception that you need for that one tag. But otherwise, we're doing it up top in this style section. And we're actually going to see in the lab that we don't even always need to go down in the tag. There are other ways that we can do it, and you're going to see that in the lab that we switch over to in a second. All right, so what are you going to be doing today? All right, you're going to be creating one of these style tags and setting up different formatting rules to format a page. So what page are you formatting? So this is the page that we are starting with. All right, you'll notice the title up top is ilovecatclass.com, and it's all about cats, the trouble with cats, and there's information about cats. All right, now by itself, this page is pretty dull. Right, it's black and white. There's no formatting. Everything is just, left aligned. We do have like a nice bulleted list down here. So that's, an unordered list, or a UL tag for those of you in the know. And what you're going to do is you're going to take this boring black and white page and turn it into this. Yeah, just take a second. Breathe that in. All right. This is what you're going to be creating. And it's going to be glorious. Like, look how amazing this page is. So good. So good. It's like an award-winning website. All right. So how are you going to take this dull thing and turn it into this? All right. Well, let's talk about that. So you have a lab document. Right? And the lab document has a series of instructions. Right? So it says, make the heading, "The Trouble with Cats," appeared centered, 20-point bold using the font Courier. Make the chapter headings, which are all the H3 tags, appear in bold, blue, 18-point Arial font and aligned to the left. I don't like that I capitalized H3 there. I'm going to make it like this instead. Make the description of author, p.author, and so on and so forth. So let's see how this is going to work. We're going to do the first one together here, and then you're going to be doing the other ones on your own. All right, so the first one says, make the heading, "The Trouble with Cats," appeared centered, 20-point bold using the font Courier. All right, so if you haven't opened the file yet, all right, you should have this file, cats.html. You can right-click on it and choose Edit with Notepad++. All right. We're going to see that the heading, "The Trouble with Cats," is right here inside of an H2 tag. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up top here. We're going to hit Enter a few times, and we're going to make a starting style tag, and we're going to make an ending style tag. Everything that you do inside of this lab is happening in between this starting tag and this ending tag. You do not need to make a different style tag each time. Everything that you write is going to go inside of this one starting tag and this one ending tag. All right? Nothing should be happening down here. All of the formatting that we do is going to take place right up here. You should not be touching anything from the body tag down. That all stays exactly how it is. So the first instruction says, make the heading, "Trouble with Cats," appeared centered. All right, so we'll start with that. Now, again, it's an H2 tag that this heading is in. So we're going to go up here. We're going to indent in. We're going to do H2. We're going to do a left curly brace. We're going to hit Enter a few times. We're going to do a right curly brace. Now, down here at the bottom of the sheet are all of the different commands that you will need to use, right? If it is not listed here, you do not need to use it. So everything that you need to do in these bulleted points is listed down here. All right. Now, you might say to yourself, okay, great, that's what they're called. how do I actually use them? Like, what commands do I need to put in? All right, that's where this link is going to become invaluable. All right, you are going to want to use this to look up how to format and how to write these different settings. All right, there are a lot of different settings that you can use to format web pages. All right, you are not going to memorize them all. Instead, it's important that you know how to look them up and learn how to use them. All right, because when you're making stuff on your own, you're never going to memorize this all, but you are going to need to be able to know how to read these things and figure out what you need to do. So first of all, we're trying to center it. So if I had to guess which one of these is dealing with centering, I would probably go to text align. So on this link that just opened, I can either use this menu on the left-hand side or I can use this main menu, but I'm looking for the one text align. All right, and when I find it, I can click on it, and it's going to give me all sorts of examples, and it's going to show me different options that I can pick. So it's saying, all right, text align, I can either put center, left, right, or justify. Right? And if you go down, it'll just kind of show you the different values, like property values is showing you the different things that it can be. So we want our centered, so we're just going to use the word center. Right? But you do have to look this up because if you type centered, ED, if you type centers with an S, it's not going to work. So you have to make sure that you're using the correct commands. So for this one, it's text align, colon, and then the word center with a semicolon. Okay? Now let's go back to the sheet. Right? The next thing on the sheet says make it font 20 point. All right, so that's dealing with the font size. So again, if I'm not sure how to do font size, I scroll over here. I go to font size, and I see that there are different ways that I can do it. All right, I can just set it to like medium, small, large. I can set it to an actual size. I have all sorts of different options here that I can use. All right, so I'm going to go to font size. And for this one, the instruction specifically said to make it 20 point. So I'm going to do 20 PT like that. And then I'm going to go down to the next line. All right, what does it say? Instruction sheet. Make it bold. Okay. So if I'm doing bold, I have to go down here and figure out which one is bold. Now this one's a little trickier, but by process of elimination, you can probably eventually figure out that it's font weight. So again, you're going to go over here. You're going to go to font weight. And you're going to see, oh, that's easy. I just say font weight bold. I can also specify numbers if I wanted even more bold, but the sheet just says bold, so I can just say font weight bold. Font weight bold. And then the last one there is it's saying it should be font courier. So again, process of elimination, you're probably eventually going to land on font family. So we can go to font family over here. And we can see that there are different ways of writing it. But courier is one of the generic names that we can use, or one of the family names that we can use, sorry. So we can just go in there and say font family courier. So we're going to go down here. We're going to say font family, and we're going to say courier. Now, to make sure this works, we're going to hit save. It's going to turn it blue for us. I'm going to take my original one that's black and white. I'm going to refresh it. And now I can see that the font has changed. All right, this is font courier. All right. It is bolded. Might be hard to tell, but it is bolded. The size has changed, and it's centered. All right, so that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go through them one by one by one. Now, a couple of things that I want to highlight from this sheet. All right, the next one says, make the chapter headings all H3 tags. Make the chapter headings, which are all the H3 tags, be in bold, blue, 18-point Arial font, and aligned on the left. Really quickly, I just want to emphasize that it all goes in the same style tag. So you'll just do H3, left brace, right brace, and then those commands will go inside of there. All right, so that's one thing I want to emphasize. Another thing that I want to emphasize is the third one says p.author. All right, so what does that mean? If we go down into our HTML, you're going to see that this paragraph tag has a class called author. All right. So what that means is if I say p.author, this is only going to format the tags that are class author. And if I have a paragraph tag that's not class author, like this one right here, it will not format it. So you know how I said there's going to be another way to like target our formatting? This is how we can target it, all right? By saying class equals author, by adding that to the paragraph tag, I can now specify that I only want those tags that have class author to be formatted, all right? So right now, it would only format this one. If I went down and put this in here as well, then it would format both of them. But it would only format the ones that have class author in it. So that's what that's referring to when it says p.author. The fourth one says use the image cutecat.jpg as the background image for the body of the page. This one is sometimes kids have problems with. I just want to emphasize that when you go to background image, all right, and it shows you how you have to write it, you do need to have this URL part, all right? Now, yours isn't going to be paper.gif. It's going to be whatever the name of the picture is in the folder. So you're going to have to check out the name of the picture. You're going to have to make sure you get the right file extension. And you do need to have this URL, left parenthesis, right parenthesis part. Otherwise, it won't work. If you just do the name of the file, it's not going to work. You have to have this URL part for it to work. And then the last part here, it says make the main text part of the document div.mainText. We haven't looked at the div tag yet. The div tag doesn't actually make anything appear. What it does is kind of allow you to divide the page into sections and then provide formatting for that specific section. All right, so this div.mainText right here, div class main text, the div itself isn't really doing anything, but it's kind of putting all of these tags into one box so that if I format this div tag, it can format all of the stuff or impact all of the stuff inside of it. Not necessarily format each of these tags because there's different things that are formatting them, but we can kind of group all of these together and treat them as one group and then manipulate them as a group as opposed to each one individually. All right, so those are kind of just the extra little details that I wanted to give you so that when you see them, you're not confused by what's going on. But basically, you're going to go through these bullets one by one by one. You're going to apply the formatting rules. And again, all of your work should be happening up here inside of the style tag. All right, there's nothing you need to be doing that's happening down in the body. All right, and when you're done, you're hoping to get something that looks just as amazing as this looks right here. All right, so I hope this was helpful. Have a great day, and as always, reach out if you have any questions. All right.